Hey, it's your girl Go Queen with the Q Chat podcast. Thank you for tuning in to our latest episode. Before we get started, I want to give you some information on how you can grab some Q Chat merchandise. Go to www.goqueen.com and there you can purchase any Q Chat merchandise or any of my Go Love Yourself tees. So go ahead, take a look at the website and feel free to grab some merchandise today. There's something else I want to fill you guys in on. If you haven't heard, Anchor is the hottest and easiest way to make a podcast. It's the best price in the world, free. So go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And just remember, Anchor distributes your podcast to all streaming platforms. It's super simple. So go ahead and sit back and get ready to listen to the next episode of the Q Chat. But don't forget, go to www.goqueen.com and grab some merchandise. Thank you for tuning in and get ready to listen in. Go Queen! Thanks for joining in on this important episode. Just to give everyone a little heads up, this particular episode was actually recorded in May. So just to let you know, this is slightly outdated in case there's some particular sections that may seem slightly off with everything that's going on right now. But this episode was previously recorded early in May of this year. But thank you guys for tuning in. This is an episode that Courtney and I had been really dying to hurry and have a conversation about. But due to certain events taking place, I decided to save this for later, but the time is now. So please join in and let me know what you think. So we're recording a new episode of the Q Chat, and today is an important episode that Miss Courtney Podgy and we've discussed quite a bit. We wanted to do an episode on colorism. So I have two awesome ladies with me today. I have my podcast partner in crime, Miss Courtney Podgy.
Hey there, out there in the queendom.
And we have a special guest, and her name is Miss Keena, but I want to give her the floor so she can introduce herself to everyone. How are you doing today, Miss Keena?
Doing great. I'm Keena May.
Awesome.
Hello, everyone.
And where are you from?
I live in the Cincinnati, Ohio area.
Awesome. And I heard that you're an essential worker too. So I definitely want to thank you on behalf of everyone during this whole COVID-19 situation. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to be a part of our show.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
I want to get into this. I know, Courtney, you and I, just how we mention a lot of times when we do our episodes, we end up begatting another topic. So colorism was something that we touched on a lot. So I just kind of want to get started. I know, I just feel like even now in year 2020, for us as African Americans, colorism just seems like something that just kind of won't end. I know from my perspective, I still get to this day at age 43 years old. Oh, you're so pretty for a brown-skinned woman. And it really drives me. So, I just want to have a nice conversation. And I guess we can all start from everyone's perspective on exactly, just for people that may be listening that's not even clear on what it is, So let's start off just going around. What does colorism mean to you? And let's start with Courtney. So what does colorism mean to you? If you had to define it for someone that was not clear about it, what would you tell them?
Well, if I was going textbook, I would say that it's the differentiation of complexion and shades of people amongst that people, and for us, I really believe it was programmed into us. I really, and this is just from my research too, when you look at Africa, the divisions amongst people weren't about complexion or shade or this and that, but more about territory and tribe. So I don't like to romanticize Africa. I love Africa, love where I'm from. But, everybody is not holding hands across that continent singing Kumbaya. So, yes, there was divisions, but it wasn't based on complexion. I really think that was programmed into us. And it takes a lot to deprogram. And so I don't necessarily fault folks who haven't deprogrammed, because I know what it took for me to do so. But it is, I think of the five senses when I think of colorism. So I think we attach, even a taste, a smell, a sound, a look to what it is to be dark, what it is to be medium, and what it is to be light. I think your body reacts different to dark, medium, light, or to red bone, or to brown, or to chocolate. I think you're programmed so much that you have a response in all of your five senses to those things. So much so that you believe it's natural or innate. So breaking that can be very, very difficult.
Wow, that's a good perspective. So, Keena, what's your definition? If you had to explain colorism from your perspective for someone that wasn't clear on it, how would you define it?
I think it's kind of similar to what Courtney said, kind of the breakdown of us as a people, how we kind of visualize and see each other defined by the color of our skin. My aspect of it from me growing up, it's always been being very, although I'm very light skinned, darker was always better for me. So, in my household, that's kind of how it was. My parents kind of, taught that very dark skin was one of the greatest things to be. So from my perspective, it's been very different. And then having to be the one who was considered, oh, you so light skinned, you look white, you look like a white girl, So I've had that aspect of colorism growing up. So I would just say that the definition for me is just the breakdown of how we do see each other, visually, and the biases we create based on the color
Now,
of our
I'm glad
skin.
you mentioned what you just said. So for anyone listening, Courtney and I, when we were birthing this episode, we intentionally wanted to have perspectives from all different skin tones. So I'm so happy what you said, Keena, about just your perspective as a light-skinned woman. Because for me personally, like I said, I'm a brown-skinned African-American woman. My kids are actually fair skinned, and I've had like a lot of weird comments since beginning regarding my kids. When I'm out in public, they'll get weird comments. Who's their father? Are they white? Just the silliest things of that nature. And they've received strange little comments. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with, there was a particular episode of Blackish when they talked about skin tone. And a lot of times I think people don't realize from the light skin perspective, which I was enlightened watching that episode when Tracy Ellis Ross and the Son Jr. were like, well, hey, we've also experienced some negative things too, because I think sometimes from other perspectives, we think light skin is just like the automatic golden ticket too. And they had also said some things like, okay, well, telling the dad, like, well, you actually kind of mistreat us, say like negative things towards us based on our skin tone. So that's why I wanted to make sure we had a perspective from everyone. For me personally, colorism, especially being raised in New Orleans, I experienced colorism my entire life, even within my family. My family has colors all across the rainbow. And I felt from the darker skin relatives don't necessarily get the same reverence as the lighter skin ones. They, just as far as I know, as a child, I felt like the lighter skin cousins was always viewed as the cute ones, but like the darker skin ones were kind of like disregarded. And then on the flip side, once I became an adult, I don't know if it got to a point where brown skin was in, and it's just like it seems like a lot of people would make comments, like positive comments, oh, I love your skin tone and all this type of nonsense. And I'm like, okay, I didn't get that growing up. Even in my high school, I felt that they were very into color. And now mind you, I'm a little older, I'm assuming maybe than both of you, but like when I grew up, colorism was a huge thing, especially in New Orleans. As we know, New Orleans had the brown paper bag rule, the whole Creole things of that nature. And I feel like low key it still happens, so like I just definitely wanted to get everyone's perspective. Do you guys feel like even in the media people kind of just take it and run with it sometimes? Like I know Courtney and I mentioned, we talked about, it's ironic that I'm mentioning Kenya Barris again, but his new show Black as F, a lot of people had an issue with the fact that he tends to have the same running premise of the fairest skinned black woman he can find, and that's when
Mm-hmm.
it led to a conversation that I saw across media where they're saying, do they feel that media is really trying to wipe out the image of brown skin and black women in particular? Do you guys see that just in the media by any chance? Do you feel like there is an underlying tone where they kind of want to cast more lighter skinned actors to kind of wipe out brown skin? Do you guys feel that?
I don't know if it's because I'm brown skinned, so I'm always looking for brown skin representation. But ever since I was young, it was always uncanny to me how the wife or mother or girlfriend was always light skinned. And I mean, Tisha Campbell has been everybody's baby mama, girlfriend, and wife, and so it just was like, and it movies, Denzel, you can look at who's been cast opposite him, even on some of the biggest stages. Sanaa Lathan comes to mind.
Mm,
Um, and even when they might go for the cute, darker child and the darker dad or boyfriend or husband, mama is always, light brown, curly, the right type of curly,
right.
and so I've always, yeah, absolutely. I was just in a conversation this past week on social media about Queen Latifah being cast as Hattie McDaniel. Hattie McDaniel was a dark woman. She played Mamie,
Mm-hmm.
the Mamie role,
Right.
very dark and heavy set. And, while the movie was still good from what I heard, or the miniseries, I haven't seen it yet. And I love Queen Latifah, but that could have been somebody's chance,
Right.
if they would have stayed true to the character. Bad enough the dark skinned woman doesn't get cast. Bad enough you don't get cast if you're not well
Mm,
known. But this could have been some unknown, dark skinned and curvy, because we could go there
right.
too, woman's chance to show her stuff and to stay true to who Hattie McDaniel was. But so much so, Hollywood can't do that, you stick with Dana.
Mm.
You need somebody to play the historical figure. She fits the bill enough. And yeah, there's room. There is room.
Mm. What do you think, Keena? And I agree with you, Courtney. I just feel like same thing. I know from my perspective, being a brown skinned woman, I do tend to look for that. Okay, if I'm watching a movie, and I just think it's
Mm-hmm.
something that can't be helped. If I'm watching a movie, if I'm watching a TV show, if I'm watching a music video, like music videos aren't big for me now, but as a child or earlier in my life, especially music videos, it's like I would relate. If I saw someone that looked like me, quite frankly, and it is getting
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
tired, and I honestly didn't think of it too much as far as the whole Kenya Barris thing until when I watched Black as F, and I honestly couldn't get past the first episode. But I was just like, this is the
Yeah,
same
no.
thing with him. And then I watched the video on YouTube where someone broke it down, and he was pulling out all shows, even the Proud Family, how the mother is always light. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it's true. And I think it's to the point that we've kind of numbed ourselves. But then, you'll see a show. I feel like when they have a show and they finally do have a brown skinned black woman, we're like, wow. And it shouldn't be that way. Just like everybody hates Chris, the mother was brown skinned. It's like, oh my God, everyone's brown skinned. And it's like, we really got to get to the point where we have to celebrate that African American show has African Americans. It's just kind of ridiculous. But if you think about it, even Bill Cosby kind of set that tone, because even as a child, I
Mm-hmm.
always was like, and mind you, like I said, my lineage is all over the place. But even I used to watch the Cosby Show, like, okay, really, like they don't look like Cliff. Like Denise doesn't look like either one of their that she could even be their child. That was just me as a young child noticing that, but I feel like it's a little hidden quota where they have to throw in some light skin somewhere, or people just don't want to see it. Maybe, I don't know, but it just seems like it's a trend now. So what do you think about colorism in the media, Keena?
I think it's been what it's always been. I think it goes back to even our heritage here in this country, as far as white being better and us looking at white women or the closest thing to white women being, you know, the top shelf, the thing to go to. I mean, if you look beyond even the media, when our men who reach higher levels, you don't really see them dating or marrying dark skin or even Black women, period. So I think it's something that has been there from the beginning of time. Now I would say at this point in time, you know, we are progressing to some degree, and you see more dark skinned women on television, you know, but it's just something that has always been. And I feel like no matter how we try to do more and have more darker skin African Americans or on television, it's always going to be a thing where they don't really want to cast that or broadcast that, because then that would be shining light on the fact that we do, you know, love ourselves, and we do have families, and we do progress no matter what. I just think it stems from what has always been.
And you know what else is interesting? And I don't want to speak too much on it because I'm not in this heritage, but they do that to the Latina women too.
That is true.
You know, Jennifer Lopez, you know, and Rosie Perez, they all trend towards the lighter side of what it is to be Puerto Rican, of what it is to be Dominican, you know, but there are Black Dominicans, Black Puerto Ricans, you know. But you know, Sofia Vergara, another one, you know. So, you know, I think when it comes to Black and brown, you know, it's still what Keena said, the closest to white. You know, and I think it's unfortunate that, you know, when you take it to history, you know, like Keena said, since, you know, our beginning of our time here, it was what always struck me, you know, especially, you know, Keena made the point of, it seems like our men, you know, especially as they reach certain heights, they go lighter and lighter, and then out of the Black race altogether.
Right, correct.
But what has always struck me is that even when you look historically, it's, you know, it's as if the white man said, do as I say, not as I do. So I'm going to have you concentrate your dreams and hopes on, you know, this image that I painted in front of you of the white or the lighter woman being everything in the world, while I tiptoe behind you and go be with the darkest woman on the plantation. And then you fast forward, a lot of the dark-skinned women that I do see in some of these high-profile relationships, they're with white men. And so there's still this kind of do as I say, not as I do type thing. Like, if I can keep you focused on running for that prize that I told you was the prize, I can keep running in the back door and, you know, getting what I've been really desiring underneath it all the whole time. And I don't know why people don't see or didn't see the contradiction in that. If the white mistress of the plantation is all so much this, that, and the other, she's the queen, she's this, that, and the third, why are you running out here? Why are you walking past her and down the stairs and out the door and out to the fields to come get what you said is ugly and haggard and everything else?
And not only to kind of add to that, now if you also look what's being cast on television when they're casting Black women in roles, they're with white men as well.
That's starting to be a big thing now. Like a lot of the shows,
a big thing in the commercials and everything. There's a couple commercials on. I'm like, oh,
exactly. And Shonda Rhimes, for example. I mean, look, How to Get Away with Murder, Scandal. Both of the sisters, you know, they were white men. I mean, cool. And the funny thing is, I think because, and mind you, another key thing, they were both brown-skinned women with white men too. And obviously, we're not knocking that, but it's just interesting. Like, we have to whitewash it in some kind of way, you know, like it's like a requirement or something, you know.
Right, like if you're gonna go dark, then go get the white man.
Right. It's just like, okay, like we just can't. It's like, I don't get it, you know. But one interesting thing too, just like you mentioned, looks like you both mentioned, and I hope no one gets offended if you do. Facts are facts, you know. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, whatever. It is true. Like, lighter skin is viewed as like a trophy. So come on, look at our athletes. Most of them, you know, when they get up in status, they get either light or white. And Why do we all
Mm-hmm.
love Russell Wilson? Because it's like, oh, I see you play it. You got Sierra. She's brown. And it's just like we give him extra credit for it. Like he gets an extra A because she's brown, which it's like the fact that we even notice that. It's a shame, but it's like we can't help it because we honestly really don't see it that often. So
Mm-hmm.
when we do,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speaking from my perspective, when I see certain actors, you know how it is. We'll have little crushes on people, and then we'll see their spouse in the media. And when it's actually a black woman, we're like, what? And
Oh,
God
shoot.
forbid she's
Mm-hmm.
brown. It's like, oh wow, we're like, oh my God, it's like a unicorn. You know, like this isn't
Mm-hmm.
happening. So, do you guys feel? Which I have a feeling I know what we're gonna say, but just like Keena mentioned as well, it's just the whole way of the land. Light is better. White is the standard of beauty. So it's just I don't know. It's just I feel like do you guys still feel that with the standard of beauty that is still in our minds that we're kind of brainwashed and embedded that lighter is closer to white, meaning that it's more beautiful? Because like I said, and I'm sure you're familiar with this too, Courtney, I feel like when a brown skinned woman is considered quote unquote beautiful, it's like, oh wow, you're so pretty. Like as if we're not allowed to be beautiful because we're brown skinned. So do you guys feel that it's
Mm-hmm.
still the same old thing that just light just is considered the better standard of beauty?
I feel that it's hard to come
Mm-hmm.
out of,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like, with the social media era, being more prominent now, that, you know, you see more pride in darker skin being put out there, you know, for the younger generation to see. I think when it comes to media, certain media and who runs it
Mm-hmm.
really depends on how that's depicted. But for us as a people, I think we're trying to get away from that more and more. However, it's still, it takes, as Courtney said, it takes a lot to kind of flip that switch for a lot of different people.
I think when it comes to black men specifically and their desires, I think a lot of the guys that we can think of, especially some of the more colorist guys like your Lil Waynes and stuff like that, I think for them, I truly believe, and I didn't go to school with them or no, but I would bet my bottom dollar that for a lot of them, the women they have now are the girls that never paid them attention,
Mm.
that walked past them and, was like, boy, please, that laughed at the jokes of them being darker and uglier and this and that. So I really do feel like most of what they do is an accomplishment to themselves that, ha ha, nah, I got you. And I believe that's why they run through them because I really feel like if lighter skinned women or even women of other ethnicities were actually the cream of the crop to them that they say they are, you wouldn't have 3, 4, and 5 pregnant at a time running through them like draws. You still like I've never really envied the position of a lot of these women because they end up on tear stained pillows just like everybody
Mm.
else. They're not in any better relationships. And so, but I don't think that has anything as much to do with the woman as it has to do with the man. And I think a lot of these men are trying to rehab themselves from the hurt of being darker, from the hurt of being labeled ugly or unattractive or not being the guy. And I think they feel they can launder that away with as many lighter and or ethnically ambiguous women as they can. And that's why they still aren't in any better relationships than
Well,
anyone
let me
else.
pull from
And
what you
so,
just said. So, because what you just said is very interesting. Because, of course, we as women, we kept saying from the perspective of colorism from women. So, do you think that men, because you brought up a very good point that we didn't touch on. So, light and dark skin with men as far as the standard of beauty. Now, sometimes I feel like with black men, a lot of us, ooh, look at that chocolate brother. So do you think it's slightly different? Because you brought up a good perspective how some of them may have been teased or whatnot. So maybe this is somewhat of a rebellion per se, to get like the lighter skinned woman or even the white or whatever, the ethnic ambiguous
I
one.
think it's like what you said. I think it's like what you said earlier. You grow into the privilege of being viewed as sexy or whatever. So, yes, I believe that if you go back and you ask Tyson Begford or you ask my brother from Africa, I can never say his name.
Jaimin
Um,
Hansu.
there you go. If you go back and ask 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 year old, Idris
Mm-hmm.
Elba were people knocking down his door, I would say absolutely
Good
not.
point.
I think I think it's something we grow into. And you mentioned this, Rhonda. I know it happened with me growing up. No, I was not on the list.
Mm-hmm.
It took growing into myself. It took people viewing other aspects of being darker as beautiful or at least alluring. So having full lips, having full breasts, those things then become
Right.
attractive. As those guys get older. But I do still think that a lot of us, and not just these guys, in different ways, a lot of us are running away from the hurts of the
I know I've
past.
heard Tay
You
Diggs
know,
say in interviews that he wasn't considered attractive at all when he was younger. And anyone that
oh yeah,
follows him
oh
knows
yeah.
I've never seen him date a black woman ever. You know?
Hello.
So
And look, I love my brother Wayne. I do, even with all the color stuff that he says. I love him because I feel like I truly see pain in that
mm,
brother, and there's a lot he needs to do. But I'm gonna just put it this way: imagine being Lil Wayne without money, without cash money, walking around the streets every day, and then you can kind of just imagine what that would have been like
but I
for
think some
him.
of it, I think a part of it, I think really it's like having a new toy. You have money, so it's like, hey, I have all this money, so I'm gonna get, you know, a particular image because I can afford it per se. Like it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
to me, I feel it's like a trophy. But do you also feel that some of it is like a kind of reaction, like a rebellion to what we experienced during slavery per se? Like, okay, black men obviously, and if you go back to just hell, they're being treated like animals now. Do you think a part of it may just be a rebellion, like, okay, you guys, white people, racists, whatever, did this to us, so we're gonna take your daughters? Like, do you think it could be like a
Hmm.
rebellion to
I
that?
think that's definitely an
Because
aspect.
part of me thinks that's part of it too. That is not even about, oh, we think they pretty. It's like, okay, I'm gonna just do this because I can. I'm not gonna get lynched for it or whatever. Like, that's me personally. I know you said you agree, Keena. Do you guys really see that? Because I'm thinking that's a part of it, honestly.
I've had men tell me that.
Mm,
I've had men tell me that's why they do, because they can do whatever they want to them, so to speak. That's why they do it pretty much.
mm-hmm.
They get what they want, they can do what they want, and it's more of a disrespectful aspect than trying to make them their queen or, anything to that nature.
Right, because I do think some brothers they dating white women, they not treating them nice. So it's not like it's nothing to
Mm-hmm.
envy. I think because they can do it.
Well, and I've said this too as we move into, further and further into this next century. White women are really on the bench with us now. It's all about the ethnically ambiguous woman. Is she from Israel? Is she from Brazil?
True,
you
that is
know,
true.
so they kind of on the bench with us. It's been a while since I've seen like a truly white woman, on anybody's arm. Now they are sand, like a sandy Egyptian sand
True.
brown with jet black hair and asses wider than all
You just hit the
outside.
nail on the head because shapely
Um,
women have they're it now. I mean, come on, look at Meg the Stallion, people like that. I mean, shapely is in, and back in the day, that really was not revered too much.
no,
So that automatically
no,
knocks
no.
out certain ethnicities because they don't have the curves, So
And
And
I
I think
really,
part of it is,
I think part of that too is where you
mm-hmm.
are, because currently where I reside, you see a lot of black men with white, thicker women.
Mm,
You know what I mean? It's
mm,
not necessarily, on the media, they go more for what you said, Courtney. But out here where I live, you see a lot of Black men with a lot of thicker women and a lot of the Black women with white men out
Mm,
here.
wow.
Mm.
Have you ordered your ebook of A Case of Injustice? New Orleans' own author Keish Nicole has written an excellent and page turning book entitled A Case of Injustice. Order yours today on Amazon.com and you can grab your ebook of Miss Keish Nicole's A Case of Injustice. Order yours today. I think it
Now, look, you done stumped us on that one.
right. But just to get back to, obviously we're talking about colorism. I want like to get deeper as far as because, like I said, we have the rainbow right here. So I want to start with you, Keena, and I know when you began giving your definition of it, you mentioned, just in your family, and I've also mentioned things in my family. And Courtney, you mentioned things in your family in past episodes too. So I want to start with you, Keena, because I want to get everyone's personal experience with colorism. Can you give us just a background, just a deeper one, just how has it affected you? I know you mentioned in your family how they actually flipped it around and it was like you too light. So give us a deep perspective on just ways you've experienced it in your personal life, just how has it affected you as far as colorism is concerned?
Well, I've had being the light skin, it was always, even coming up through school, that it was just an automatic judgment that because I was light skinned, I assumed that everybody assumed I thought I was better than them because I was light.
Mm,
You the girl that's walking down the hallway, shaking her ponytail. You think you're all of that, because I was light skinned. And it's honestly something that really didn't cross my mind, as though I thought I was better, because as I told you, growing up, my family was always, you know, chocolate is great, chocolate is pretty, and the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. That was always in my family. I mean, even growing up, it was, oh, you're so light. My mom even told me stories about when she gave birth to me, because she was brown skinned and I came out so light. The nurses at the hospital kept checking wristbands all the time because they didn't believe I was her baby.
wow.
So, I mean, it starts from even then, and that has been my experience just growing up, that it was always perceived that I thought I was better because I was light skinned. So that's a major aspect that I grew up with.
Do you feel that because you were lighter skinned too, people kind of felt you were kind of soft, because I think people always associate brown skin too with being like a harder individual, like do you feel like people kind of disregarded you too amongst your own African American community as well because of your skin color?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. And I was, because I think Courtney can attest to, because we've been friends since I was in 11th grade. Um, I've been a sweeter type of individual. So when you're that type of person, you have to prove that you can't be ran over
Mm,
almost like twice as hard.
mm-hmm.
So that is definitely, and I guess I never really looked at it as though, as the colorism aspect, because I was light skinned, in my own community, that it would seem as though I was softer, because I was closer to considered white.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, yeah, when you think about it, I've always wondered why people thought that, I had to prove myself, that you just can't use me and abuse me, as much as more than anyone else.
Right.
And I guess I never really looked at it like that, but I would definitely have to agree.
Wow. See, that's just because I've seen it, like I said, and I have lighter skinned kids, so I've seen it. I just feel like they make people have to prove their level of blackness, you know. So that's I just is something that I just assume just by listening to what you're saying. I just feel like we have a bad tendency to do that. So Courtney, what's your perspective? So how has colorism personally affected you?
Well, I have a good old Sevmore, New Orleans family.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, I guess more people from New Orleans would typically assume that a Seventh Ward New Orleans Creole family probably wouldn't have a lot of dark skinned people until one of the offspring decides that she's going to fall in love with the darkest dude from Alabama who happened to be Arthur Floyd. And then her brother falling for, a dark skinned, thickety thick chick from around the way being my uncle. So we kind of introduced the first spectrum of color in our family. That would be me, my brother, and then my cousin. And it was definitely noticeable, from jump that we were the dark ones. We look like go put some Vaseline on them knees, looking like a roach in the flower pot.
Wow.
Look at his black ass. Come here, boy. And then the lighter skinned cousins come right. Hey, my baby. Oh, look at you. Look at all that hair. That type of thing. So is it implicit? No, but it most certainly is implied, and then on top of my family being one of the ones where we gonna rib you so that when you go out in the world you can handle it. So you got it anyway, no matter who you were in my family.
Wow.
And you better see the joke in it. So it was rough. And in New Orleans, because I've lived a couple of places in New Orleans, specifically among Black people, when you throw that Creole in there, it's a whole nother level of range. When you have Black people with legit green and blue eyes and natural blonde or brownish blonde, long curly hair, the darker you get, you just don't stand a chance in a place like that. And, I remember, I went to Corpus Christi school and camp, and, I'm having to sit next to certain, young ladies that in this community have it all, can definitely pass a, brown paper bag, and it just, and you wonder where is your place, amongst that. And then you look at media and there's no representation and you start to feel invisible. And I think I felt like that for a good while. I felt like if I could be funny and entertaining, I picked that up immediately being young. So if you weren't going to look at me, for being cute or, this, that, and the third, I'm a tap dance and tell a joke, and so I started to garner attention that way. And for me, my outlet became acting and things like that, because once you're on the stage and you're a part of a cast, you have everyone's attention if they're in the theater,
right.
And it's only at that time people will suspend all of the things that occur in society and let me be a person, although I had to be somebody else. Wow. But they allowed me that then. And so that was my outlet. And so I joked, I danced, I sang, I put on little shows. I always entertained to get the attention that would have automatically gone to someone else. And so for me, it wasn't until I became pregnant, really realized how this all begins.
Wow.
People were worried about my daughter's hair texture and skin color before they even asked me if she had all her fingers and toes, and I'm like, how do Black children stand a chance when before they even come out of the womb, we are worried about who they're going to take from? I hope she reaches back wherever, whatever that is, and get this from them. Ooh, maybe she'll get this from her. And even to the point, my husband being African, people are, oh Lord, did she reach back to that Africa? Like, this is what I mean. And I'm like, you don't want to ask me if she's trending, as normal for her height and weight. You don't want to know that.
How she's in.
What's more important here? So I think it's just so deeply rooted. It takes so much to come out of it.
It does. I know from my perspective, as I said, as a child, both sides of my family, actually, my mom and my dad's side of family, is actually full of different skin tones. So for me, once I became an adult, and like I said, as a child, I felt like, because I had quote unquote average features. So I felt like I wasn't revered at all look wise, but I was always really smart. So that was always the big thing. Like, oh, she's so smart. She makes A's, blah, blah, blah. But it was never like, oh, she's so cute. She's so beautiful. But I would see, in comparison and contrast, I had a cousin who was the same age as I was, but they always, I felt like, put her on a pedestal because, mind you, she was lighter skinned. And I felt like in my
Mm-hmm.
family, ironically, not on my dad's side of family, I felt like they never, ever, ever made me feel less than, But as far as my mom's side, I felt like they were very big on colorism and just, images and, just things of that nature. And I just never felt like I fit in with them ever. Now, once I got older, I did feel a little different, but I felt resentful because I felt like no one should ever make a child feel like they're less than. I had an uncle on my mom's
Mm-hmm.
side of family that would literally call certain people ugh. Who does that? So that's
Mm.
not something that I ever like erased out of my mind because I mean, as a child, every child has an awkward stage as it is. So you're already, trying to find who you are, and then when you're not even comfortable
Yeah,
amongst your
absolutely.
own family. So then when I got older, high school was the same thing. I felt like at my school was extremely big on colorism. But then once I got to college, things totally shifted. So at that point, I'm dating, and my best friend at the time was light skinned. Whenever we would go out, if there was a dark skinned guy, he wanted to, talk to her, and the light skinned guys, ironically, would want to talk to me. And I was just kind of like, okay, wow. So now the same skin tone that wasn't good enough, you know, my whole life now it's just like a big thing now. I thought it was weird, especially when it was like, okay, the light skinned guys interested, like this is weird. So down fast forward.
And you know what? It's funny that you say that, Sharonda, because that's where a lot of the enlightenment happens is in
Right.
college. I've seen a lot of people go away to
Right.
college and come back flipped, and I think you get, especially if you go to an HBCU, but I think you get enlightened by that one or maybe two professors who start to break
The
down
barriers.
what we are
Mm-hmm.
calling, or starting to awaken you, and you start looking at how you've been taught certain things and where it came from and how all these things that you
Right.
swear are preference are really programming. And I've seen a lot of
So
people come home with dark skinned sisters after
right. So
college, like,
for me,
oh,
once
okay,
I
you
got
must
to
have got your
college, it was
enlightenment.
different. And I actually ended up marrying someone in my early 20s who was fair skinned. Actually, he not only was he fair skinned, but he was like mixed with several things. So I would always, once we had our first child, the most annoying thing in the world was no one after 19 and a half hours of labor wants to hear from their in laws, oh, he doesn't even look like he could be her baby. I was just like, are you freaking kidding me? First of all, my oldest child is literally like the splitting image of me. Like when I saw him as a newborn, when I finally got
Mm-hmm.
past the 19 and a half hours and I had a chance to look at my child, I was like, damn, like he looks just like me as far as his features and everything. And but my in-laws, they couldn't see that. All
Mm-hmm.
it saw was, and most, I don't care what skin color you end up with, melanin takes a few weeks to come in. That's a science lesson for people. So I'm saying to myself, we don't know what color this child is. He's, like his color is not even in, but all they saw was that. It took maybe once he got to be 2 or 3, they finally admitted that he looked like me. It's like it's been obvious since like 3 minutes in his life. So
Mm.
having lighter skinned children, I've gotten the most ignorant comments all the time. I had people that just, I would be out in public with the kids. They're kids. My children look just like me. And like I said, I don't even like children that much that I would be walking around with 3 kids anyway. Like I don't like kids that much. Yeah, they're my kids, So I would get the most ridiculous comments, like is their father mixed? And then at the time my last name was, it was a little ethnic or whatever. Even though, like I said, my ex-spouse, he's black, but his one of his parents was of another race. So his last name was a bit unique. So when people would hear my last name at the time, wait, what are you guys? Like they were totally confused. And I just was like, this is New Orleans, number one, where you guys know that we come in all different colors. And I felt like I had to always explain, well, I have light skinned people in my family, like, and I'm just like, why do I have to even explain this? You know, about my kids. I just thought it was ridiculous, so it's just weird. And then, as I said, also just from my own personal perspective, once I became an adult, oh, you're so pretty for a brown skin woman. Oh, I love your skin tone. It's just like, are you kidding me? And I don't take it as a compliment. And I never will. I'll never take anyone saying, oh, you're pretty for a brown skin woman as a compliment. Because to me, I'm interpreting, my interpretation is, oh, even though you brown, you cute. And it's like, that's not that's an insult, right? It's not
Yeah,
a
it's not a
compliment at
compliment.
all. Like, why can't we just be beautiful? Why can't a light skinned woman just be beautiful? Why do we have to throw out that she's light skinned? Why do we have to put color into everything? So that's definitely my perspective with that. And it gets very annoying. It never grows old. But mind you, I have that childhood history where I felt like it was just the most negative thing in the world. And, I wasn't viewed in a particular way. So once you finally see me, who I always have been, it's not enough for me. Like, it doesn't.
What about this? Do you think the natural hair movement has allowed for more shades to be viewed as
Definitely.
beautiful?
I'm
I,
happy
I
you brought
I
up
really feel like
natural
there's a
hair. So let's
correlation in
break
that.
down natural hair. So I feel like with natural hair, we still even mess that up, because I feel like only a certain texture in natural hair, like there's different textures that get more credit than others. Because I remember when I first went natural and I transitioned. So when
Mm-hmm.
I finally cut off whatever did, like a mid chop, I would get a lot of people that would be like, oh, I see you. Is that your real hair texture? Because God forbid, girl, brown skinned women, we're not supposed to have curls and coils. So I felt like I would get that all the time. That's you? That's your real texture? And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm natural. Then they would be shocked that I actually had curly hair, because we're not supposed to have that. Curly hair is only a light skin thing. So I even feel like with the hair, we got to pick that apart, and if it's only a particular.
Which to me is the ignorance of the
Exactly.
definition.
And it's all ignorance. Like, you just hit the nail on the head. It's ignorance all across the board. But I feel like natural hair, you brought up a good point. It's helped and it's hurt, because I feel like with Lupita Nyong'o, for example, I feel like she's a beautiful woman in my opinion, but I feel like some people have mixed opinions on that, you know. But natural hair, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it depends on the texture whether it helps or hurt. Because if you go natural and it's not a particular air quote texture, it's like extra to say, oh, that person's not attractive. I don't like, look at that hair, it's nappy. And that's the word that we hate to use. But some people really view that in their mind, So I know me personally, people would be like shocked that I had a particular hair texture, which once again is offensive as well, because it's just like, give me a break. And once again, as you said, Keena, it's total ignorance. What do you guys think? Like, I feel like it helps and it hurts. Mm-hmm.
I can see the hurt and help. Um, but I think the more we figure out
Mm.
our hair, because that's what this has really been about. We've spent so many
Mm-hmm.
years trying to make it something else that now we're probably gonna have to spend just as many years learning
Right.
what we are and what is natural. So I've seen this movement, I've watched it, and yes, at first,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the four C's, it was rough at first. But I think the more we stick to our guns and I really truly believe that getting to know your
It
natural
is.
hair
Now,
is
don't get me
getting to
wrong.
know yourself. I really do.
Right.
And
Now,
and I'm
natural
no
hair,
longer scared of
regardless of
water
how people may view
like
particular
I
textures,
used
I
to.
do get where natural hair is completely accepted now, as far as I'm concerned. Not 100%, but it's definitely acceptable. Back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
you could not cut off your hair and get an afro or something. They would call you Florida Evans, and not in a good
And
way.
walk
No
around. Right.
disrespect to anybody.
I was gonna say except in the 70s. And that's what really shocked me. I'm like, how did we go from the 60s and 70s where the bigger the fro, which is
Right.
really gonna look better in the four range, it was like you were everything, and
Right.
now we slid so far to where that's just not it. But I really think I just see a correlation in the journey. The more we get to know, because I look,
It's so funny.
I have 4Z hair, so I know you don't want to just walk around like I get it. But the more we get to know it, the more we share information about products and what works and this, that, and the third. I feel like the more we're coming into ourselves, and I think in the long run it'll
Right, I agree.
help
And I
more than
see the
hinder.
good. I do see the good and bad, but I'm happy with the evolution that is helping to for us to just be happy with the way our hair grows out of our head. And I think that correlation kind of relates to us being happy who we are as a people, all skin tones. Our hair is just as different as our
I
skin
agree.
tones are. And I think that really helps the evolution of us, flipping that light switch to be able to see and understand and just be
I
happy
definitely
with that.
agree. So I definitely want to get to wrapping this up, but before we end everything, I want to go around our group again, and just if you guys have, we've come a long way in a sense. We still have a ways to go, but do you guys have any final words you want to just anything just on your perspective on the whole colorism debate and what that means right now currently for this world? Do you guys have any final statements regarding it? And I'll start with Miss Keena.
Um, I just want the conversation. My thing, I would just like the conversation to continue and kind of grow and progress. Because I think the more we talk about it, the more we address it, the more minds open and different perspectives spark different ideas and different thoughts in everyone. So my final statement would just be that we continue to talk about it and address it and keep forums like this open and
Perfect. Awesome.
continuing.
I agree. So, how would you like to wrap up your thoughts regarding the colorism debate, Courtney?
I think for me, I definitely the conversation continuing, and people not being afraid. Those of us who are creative to create the world that we want to see, because that's what everyone else does. So, me personally, if I ever get a chance to get some of the ideas that I have in my head out on the screen or on the stage, you are going to see the world as I see it, and that will include brown, dark brown love and stories and voices. And and this has been more and more, but I think just not counting on others to tell our
Yeah,
story,
I agree. My
and to
final
paint our
words
world.
is, I'm always big on go love yourself, as everyone knows who listens to this show. So that's my main thing is just go love yourself. I don't care what the world may make you think, or what the media may make you think, or what society may make you think. Whatever skin that you're in, literally, figuratively, go love yourself because beauty comes in so many ranges and we all serve a purpose, and just break down these barriers, I definitely feel like we definitely do need to continue this conversation because a lot of people are clueless, I would say. They don't realize how big colorism is in this world, and I think that's what the media, what the enemy that wants to put out this colorism wants us to be brainwashed and to be numb to it. But I definitely encourage people to just continue the conversation and don't be numb to it, and just show yourself and prove who you really are, that you're 100% number one. You're more than a skin tone anyway, but to not be afraid of who you are. Don't be afraid or intimidated or think that you have to fall into a standard of anything, so that's my main thing to focus out, and just to end this conversation is to just make sure you go love yourself. I don't care what tone you're in. Like I said, you're beautiful. And I definitely want us all to continue the whole colorism debate because it is important right now. And thank you guys for being a part of this. I definitely want to continue the conversation in a future show. So thank you guys for listening. And if you have any comments, make sure that you inbox me or comment on Instagram. But we can definitely keep the conversation going. Thank you, ladies.